Hello, travelers. Welcome to Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. My name is Tim, and this week, together with Citi's E for Education campaign, we're going on a journey to explore how global citizens can put that valuable skill set to work as part of a global career. We'll be connecting with Citi employees in financial capitals around the world, all of whom have generously agreed to share their stories, observations, and tips for finding success in this highly interconnected global economy. Today, we're traveling to Mumbai, India, to speak with Debalina Dasgupta. Debalina is joining us to talk about working, living, and thriving professionally in Mumbai. But before we meet Debalina, I want to welcome the teachers, students, Reach the World travelers, and early career professionals who are watching today. Feel free to use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and of course to share any questions you have for our guest as we go. And with that, I think we're ready to journey to India. Debalina, welcome to Reach the World.
Hi, Tim, and thank you so much for that warm welcome. And thank you to Reach the World for inviting me to share my career journey with the audience here and, giving me the opportunity to pay it back with some insights and learnings that hopefully shall be of help in providing some templates to our, bright young listeners. Professionals who are starting their careers or students who have joined us today or maybe watching the streaming later on.
Yeah.
But before we dive into my career journey, I also wanted to share that in India, we are celebrating one of the largest festivals. That is an annual affair in this country. It's a festival of lights, and it's called Diwali. And we are having a nice long weekend. It's an extended weekend, and therefore it's a quietish Tuesday. So while usually weekdays are super busy and hectic, and we have clients calling in all the time, it's been an extended weekend for both Citibank colleagues, myself, and our clients as well. So before I dive in, I just wanted to wish everyone who's listening in and will listen in a very happy Diwali and a great festive season.
Thank you so much,
So
Debalina. It's really nice to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Diwali to you as well. We'll dive right in if you're ready with our first question. And our first question is
yes.
always about your personal global career journey. How did you come to be working for this multinational corporation? What inspired you to sort of be so connected professionally to the global economy?
Sure. So, Tim, I will share a quick note of introduction on myself. I think just to share the context of what I do, I don't want to get into too much of jargons. I know this is a audience that wants to hear more about the journey itself than the technical terms, but I think it will help in setting the context. So, very quickly. I'm part of a team which is called the Corporate Foreign Exchange Sales Team, and this is within Citibank, based in Mumbai. And what I essentially do in a nutshell is help our clients execute their international transactions across countries and geographies that they are present in, and also help them to manage the potentially significant, financial risks that may arise out of currency volatility, which can in turn have a very meaningful impact on their profitability. Just for simplifying this conversation, I'd like to say that foreign exchange, very simply put, is simply an exchange of one currency versus another. And typically, these transactions arise for companies that operate in multiple geographies, like I mentioned, on account of foreign trade, that is export imports, international payments, international M&As, and so on and so forth. And to make it more relatable, I would say that for individuals, you have these currency transactions or foreign exchange transactions when the individual travels abroad or studies overseas, or somebody working overseas needs to repat money, maybe from their work location back to their home country, etc. But before talking about where I am today, Tim, I will rewind back to where I really began. And this is just to illustrate that irrespective of where one grows up, having the right influences early on in life is really a strong head start for anyone. So I started my schooling in a really remote town in the heartland of India, and through school years, I hopped from one small town to another. Sometimes, these places were even smaller than small towns. They were really little villages that otherwise had really bare bone infrastructure. So basically, I just kept moving wherever my father's career as a field engineer took us. And like I mentioned, that although the infrastructure was quite bare bone, most of these places had solid primary and secondary schooling systems, mostly thanks to Irish missionaries who set up educational institutions in these remote parts of the country. So I would say that my foundations were very strong, and I dare say international as well, with a huge focus on extracurricular activities, which were very strongly encouraged by my parents as well. And that was not really how typical Indian parents were at that time. There was always this additional focus or undue focus only on academics as opposed to extracurricular activities. And I think that all round development focus really helped me later in my career. My first exposure to a large city was when I moved out of my parents' place after high school for a college degree. Um, since there were no reputable colleges where my father was located, I moved to a large metropolis where I went to college, and this was in the eastern region of India. The place is called Kolkata, or some of you may know it as Calcutta, as is the erstwhile name of the place. So I secured a master's in business and finance from the University of Calcutta, and I started my career almost 20 years back with a equities broking firm. Um, and my stint there, incidentally, lasted only a few months. But I would say, it was a very exciting time for me, given at that time the financial market in India was really expanding exponentially. It was literally exploding. And not only that, the stock exchanges in India were rapidly being digitized and automated, along with the launch of, several sophisticated products, including equity derivatives, etc. So the regulator was also really opening up the market at that time. And I think that perhaps that early exposure, to sitting in front of a terminal, inside the trading room in that equity broking firm, and looking at these multicolored numbers flashing across the screen, and trying to make sense of this avalanche really of information that was being broadcast all the time. That is what really got me hooked to markets, and trying to make sense of that, and to commercialize is what really got me hooked to markets, I would say. um, but however exciting the job was, I also had a very strong aspiration to move to a larger institution that would help me get exposure to more diverse products and give me a wider career path to choose from. um, and that was not really being fulfilled in the job I was in. So when I got an offer a few months into my first job to move to an Indian private bank, I very happily accepted the offer. And I spent the next 15 odd months of my time in this Indian private bank, rotating as an associate across almost all units in the bank, which was again a very valuable experience for me. So I rotated in their retail operations, in their credit, in international trade, and finally I moved to the markets operation team. And not only did I move jobs at that time, I also got the chance to move from Calcutta to Mumbai as a part of my rotation program, which I think at that time was really the icing on the cake for me, since Mumbai was and still is considered the financial and commercial capital of the country. Um, it was in the last part of my rotation in the markets operations job that I got a sneak peek to currency markets, and how a dealing room functions. And that eventually is what became my calling in my career. When the time came for me to share my preference of which business unit I wanted to be absorbed into at the end of my rotation, I asked to be placed in the dealing room. Incidentally, I didn't land that job since the bank at that time did not hire fresh associates into a front office role. But I kept persisting with the unit head and I kept pestering him for quite some time. In the meanwhile, I got a call from City Markets for a job interview. And I almost didn't go because I was close to securing a commitment in my current organization for this job that I was aspiring for in the front office. But incidentally, uh, at that time, my then fiance and now my husband insisted that I should not let this opportunity to interview with an international institution pass. So I found support unexpectedly at that time, and that gave me the push, despite my skepticism, to go through countless rounds of interviews with Citi, and finally I ended up on the trading floor in City Mumbai. And I would say that was a big leap, which came early on in my career. I would say just about 2 years or 2.5 years into my career, with the journey from my small town roots to a big multinational institution. And landing that job was also really a testimonial to the power of an institutional culture that valued merit, aptitude, fitment above everything else. And while I was very delighted to have secured a coveted job, it definitely came as a culture shock when I landed up, in a very high pressure environment. Incidentally, my boss at that time was quite a taskmaster. It was not easy fitting in after a relatively easy time as an associate in my previous organization. But I simply love the fact that, my boss demanded the best of every individual in his team, irrespective of their backgrounds, and he would simply not accept any less. So every day of those early years was quite a challenge, given that, I had to compete with a set of unbelievably smart colleagues, adapt to an international work culture, etc. And it was definitely outside my comfort zone and took me a while to settle into.
Mhm.
um, and not only that, I was also acutely aware of the seat that I was occupying, which, were very few actually at that time. And it's only a privileged few that really got that seat. So the competition was quite intense. And not to mention, in my early days in City, I also got married. So my personal life also underwent some solid changes along the same time. And I think what helped me really find my path in those days was reaching out to people to seek help, not feeling shy. To ask for what I needed, to seek advice actively, and really build my ecosystem of mentors and, a circle of trust with partners, peers. And the other thing I think which worked well was to simply work hard and, persevere. So when I look back in my 18 years of career with City Markets, I think the formula that worked best for me remained pretty much the same over years. To create that circle of trust, to work hard, and really persevere and give my best. Uh,
Wow.
the
That's
the
amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other bit that helped is that, the business I am in is increasingly automated. In fact, in the developed world or developed markets, I would say 90% of this business is automated. But really, I think across the globe, people still continue to be, at the core of this business, especially given that I spend more than 80% of my time talking to people, whether it is clients, or it's peers, my seniors within the bank, or other stakeholders. And it always helps to uh, do something that you like doing. So for example, I like engaging and interacting with people, and I think that really um, helped me in my job. Um Especially given that I'm in a client facing role, so it helped me build strong connects with my clients, and to take a genuine interest in understanding what their problems are, and where could I bring in my expertise and the strength of my institution to help them solve those problems. I think that's what really helped in this journey. And incidentally, I met some clients that I have covered almost 3 or 4 years back, and I have moved on to different role now. But I met them at a city event recently, and I was really delighted that they had a positive recall about me, and welcomed me with so much of warmth. I think that was the biggest testimonial for me. So it helps to remember that whether it's a client or a colleague, they are all eventually people. And I think the motivation for people to engage often remains the same. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's
I think, yeah, yeah, I mean, loving what you do um, is the basic ingredient to having a successful career.
there's so much great advice packed into what you just described, Evelina. Thank you so much. What a global career journey by definition. One of the things you brought up that I'm really interested in is this idea of, like, you mentioned extracurricular activities when you're in your schooling years, and also sort of the benefits of a broad set of experiences that you got through some of the rotational programs
Yeah.
that you've worked at. Can you talk just a minute, like what do you think is the benefit of having a really broad set of experiences and skills when it comes to working in the environment you work in?
Well, I think in terms of extracurricular activities, in my school days, sports was as much a focus, sometimes even more of a focus than academics. And I think the way it shaped me is one, to work as a team. I think that's the most important thing in sports. I mean, there are some sports where you can be an individual contributor, and there are some sports where you can be a contributor as a team, but you need to understand those dynamics. And I think nothing teaches you the dynamics of teamwork quite as well as being a sports person. So for example, I tried my hand at basketball, which is a team sport. I tried my hand at table tennis, which could be a team sport or an individual sport, and so on and so forth. And I think it really gave me a flavor of how to work with dynamic people with different temperaments, and create a winning formula with people of these diverse backgrounds. And at the same time, I think it also taught me how to compete, and to compete with a positive construct in mind, in terms of putting out the best, and to practice uh, being the best version of yourself. So really, I think sports was one area that I was very interested in apart from academics during my childhood, and it really did help inculcate some of these values, which I think really came in handy, because an organization is also a lot about teamwork. It's also about understanding interpersonal dynamics, and really putting out the best version of yourself in order to be able to succeed. So I can draw a lot of parallels there. The other thing that there was a lot of focus on was also creative pursuits, for example arts, which again um, gave me a sense that one need not only look at traditional career paths, because in India there is always this overhang of picking a profession, uh, that is traditionally academically heavy, for example, the sciences. But I think what helped in those early years was to see that, something which is a creative pursuit could be equally important and equally life forming. So and the fact that my teachers chose to give it as much importance as academics also kind of laid the foundation early on that it need not be really a traditional career path for me. So
It
I
is
think those were some of the key takeaways from the school days.
it is so nice for me to hear that creative pursuits and artistic pursuits have helped you in your career in finance. I think people sometimes don't equate, think the two fit together, but I think you're exactly right. That's such great advice. Let's move on. I know that you are based in Mumbai and
Yeah.
you really like living and working in the city. What if I were, a young person who was coming to Mumbai to work? What sort of things would I need to know to be successful in that market?
Sure. So if I had to summarize Mumbai in a phrase, I think the two phrases that would describe it best would be high energy and fast pace. So I think, while there are many ingredients to successfully, living and working in any place, I think in Mumbai you really need to be tenacious and determined to be able to thrive here. So if you like to be on the move, for an example, or you like to be in the thick of action, then really I would say this is the place to be in. And that we have this city catchphrase that city never sleeps, and I think it can be very well applied to Mumbai. This is a city that never sleeps either. So when I moved to Mumbai, like I mentioned earlier, which was almost 20 years back, and mind you, I moved from one of the largest metros in India. I was still really gobsmacked with the sheer amount of energy that I found in the place. So I remember that my friends made a plan to go out partying in my early years in Mumbai, and it was at a really late hour of the night. And well, the transport system was fully functional at that hour, so we took a local train to get to our destination, since it was the most economical travel option at that time. And I was supposedly poor, and I was amazed how crowded the train station was at that hour of the night. Which brings me, I think, to the second point about Mumbai, which is its population. So just to put a number to it, I think at 20 million odd of population, it's probably beats several small countries hands down in terms of the size of the population. So you really have to be comfortable with having people around you most of the times, and not to be overwhelmed by it. I think the good part is that a majority of people are kind and approachable and warm. Mumbai is also a place of extreme wealth and extreme poverty that really live side by side. So you have to be prepared to face some of these really unique contrasts. It's also a melting pot of cultures and of languages, religions, festivals, cuisines, etc. So it's a complete sensory overload for anyone who travels here for the first time. Um, which is all very interesting. Um, and that's really what I recall from my early move here. And from a professional perspective, it's probably the most dynamic and vibrant city in India to work in. And I can say confidently that people aspire, at least within the country, to move here and work here, especially in the finance and banking domain, because every international financial organization that sets up shop in India will typically first set up an office in Mumbai. So the opportunities in terms of professional growth here are really unparalleled. Just as an example, this is the place which houses the central bank of the country. It is the headquarter to the major stock exchanges of the country, as well as the major private banks of the country, etc. So given the opportunities it presents, really it attracts talent from all across. It attracts top quality talent, and it has a highly competitive and dynamic workforce from diverse backgrounds. So I can tell you from my own experiences that people are extremely professional on one hand, and at the same time outside of work they are super fun to be with and extremely warm. And just to go back to the point of contrast, while Mumbai is the financial capital of the world, sorry, of India, Mumbai is also the entertainment capital of the country. And the Hindi film industry, which is called Bollywood, which is a hangover from Hollywood, obviously, is based here. So whoever comes to Mumbai must have this really larger than life experience of watching a Hindi movie with all the song and dance in a movie theater. And not just the movies, but there is also a thriving, cultural scene here with theater and music. So it's really a dynamic and multicultural city where it's difficult, but at the same time easy to settle into. Um,
That what an amazing description. I'm ready to book my ticket right now. I'm going to come and visit. That's fantastic description, Demelina. Thank you. Our sort of third question we want to get to in the few minutes we have left today is, and
yeah.
you've baked this into some of your other answers as well, just in a very condensed way. If I was a young person who is just starting their career, and based on your description of Mumbai, I like really want to come to Mumbai and be your colleague at Citi. What are some steps? What are some habits? What are some things that I could do to get a job similar to yours or be successful in Mumbai?
Sure. So I think I'll break this up into two parts, in terms of some practical tips, and then, a more generic kind of, thoughts in terms of what it takes to succeed, probably, in any organization. So specifically in terms of the practical tips, I think one needs to be mindful that Mumbai is one of the most expensive cities to live and work in India. So especially as far as accommodation etc goes, so it helps and pays to kind of work out and organize your finances in advance. It's also a very spread out city, with many suburbs, and while there are multiple modes of travel, work commute can be really really long, and traffic can be really frustrating. So it's important to pick the right locality where it's easy to commute to work from, and that can result in major time and energy saves. And to balance the cost of staying, I also see that a lot of young people actually share accommodation, which kind of helps them with the ease of access to office, and at the same time contains the cost of living. um, and there's a large population of these young professionals on account of all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, that people like to move here and work here. So it's important to figure those logistics out before one moves here. It's important to figure out some other things like taxation, because that's also an important element of the financial planning bit. And I think before moving here or to any other place for that matter, building some networks within the organization, within the city you're moving to, um, getting some information about the place that you're moving to, and using all the resources that's available to you, so that you know what to expect. All of that really really helps. And there's a lot of social media tools as well these days that can give a lot of information um, for expats in Mumbai. And the more information you have, the better prepared you are to move and settle in. And that's a bit about the logistics piece. And I would say in terms of your career itself, if one aspires for a global career, then the best way I would say is to try and find a job within an international firm with a global footprint such as Citi. Incidentally, we are present in over 90 odd locations globally, with a variety of teams and roles which are on offer, across functions. So definitely, if one aspires to, travel and work in diverse locations, then trying and securing a job in a multinational organization is a good way to start with that. And I think in terms of individual development, like you mentioned earlier, Tim, I think trying and learning different languages, trying to work on international assignments and projects, and at a student phase, possibly taking up some international exchange programs, um, gives a very good flavor of what it's like to work across, diverse geographies and people from different backgrounds. And I think it's also important to keep oneself adaptable and open to change, and possibly be flexible on things that may be small compromises, to get to eventually what you want. So, for example, if you're being offered a job in a location not of your choice, keep an open mind to evaluate if you can move there after a few years, and in the meanwhile, move to a location. Maybe that could be an interim stop. And in terms of the job content itself, I would say that there's no one formula that fits all. And I think the starting point is to try and get a sense of what you might like doing. And then, don't be afraid to explore more and find what suits you the best and what you really love to do and are passionate about. And interestingly, in international organizations like Citi, there would typically be a lot of fungibility in terms of internal moves, and most of the jobs available are posted internally as well. So do find out about the hiring policies of the institutions uh, where you aspire to work in, and there's always scope of finding something that you love doing when the slate is wider, within the organization itself. And lastly, I think do continue the learning process. Do not grow complacent, and keep investing in yourself. And you know uh, there would always be conflicting priorities when one is busy, but to find the time to keep learning new skills, and do network more. So those are my 2 cents, and I hope that answers some of the questions that you asked him.
Debalina, that's some of the best condensed global career wisdom in 30 minutes I have ever heard. I hope our students are really listening because there's so much wisdom baked into what you've said. Thank you so much for sharing. I like to end conversations as part of the Citi Global Career Journey with a fun question. You've lived and worked for some time in Mumbai. If we came to Mumbai as a first-time visitor, what are a couple things we would have to do in the city to really experience the culture and flavor of the city?
So I think in terms of the orientation itself to the city, the downtown or the southern part of the city is a great place to start with. It's also the historical part of the city, and I think it's the prettiest bit. So it's a good place. So I would recommend visiting. Cliched places, but like I said, they are the best parts of the city to orient oneself to. So I would recommend, starting with the Gateway of India, which is a historical monument, and then we have a long coastline as well in the city. So there are multiple promenades, along the ocean that one can visit. We have an Art Deco district that I don't think many people know about, and it's one of the most extensive Art Deco districts, unique in terms of the architecture of those districts. So that's a very also interesting place to explore. So I would definitely recommend visiting those parts of the city. I would also recommend visiting. Now I am quite a foodie, and the variety of cuisines here is mind boggling. So I would definitely also recommend exploring the food scene, um, and exposing oneself to all the variety of cuisines that's available here. I think starting from the street food, um, which of course one needs some stamina to digest, but one gets there, I think, with a bit of practice, right up to the fine dine restaurants. There is a lot to choose from, and one really needs to get a flavor of it all. So yes, I think definitely start with the southern part of the city, and then move outwards, and not just restrict oneself to Mumbai. If you're in India, I would definitely recommend that uh, spend some time traveling outside of Mumbai to other parts of the country, because we have about 28 odd states, and each state has its own unique language, food, um, culture, etc. And it's like a mini country in itself. So do take some time out to travel out of Mumbai and explore other parts of the country as well. So that would be my take.
Fantastic. Debolina, thank you so much for ending your workday with us, especially in the midst of Diwali. Happy Diwali to you and your colleagues. It's been so nice to speak with you and learn about your global career journey. Thank you also to our entire audience for tuning in today. There are more Citi Global Career Journey stops to come, so stay tuned. And if you missed any of our previous stops on this global career journey, you can find recordings of those events at Reach the World's YouTube channel, where we've set up a special Citi Global Career Journey playlist for your convenience. Special thanks to the Citi E for Education campaign and to all our many Citi volunteers, including especially Debolina today, for making this learning experience possible. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.